Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author and robot, and today I'm going to be doing my Meisner for writing discussion. I've talked about it a couple times in a couple different videos of how I approach sort of plotting out and working through a story, and that is using the acting method known as Meisner and then sort of tweaking it to play with creative writing. And so I'm going to walk you through kind of the basics of that. I'm going to also get ready to have actual Meisner scholars be like, this is a gross simplification. Yeah, I know. I have to condense it. But before we get started, please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy what I do on this channel. And if you have any requests for things that you would like me to cover or any questions with writing, publishing, the like, also let me know because I'm always looking to best serve you guys on answering questions. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. And yes, we are going total old school here with a PowerPoint. Oh, yeah. First question is, what is Meisner? It's an acting method created by Sanford Meisner. It specializes in being present in the moment and being dynamic and reactive to the situation as opposed to plotting outside of the moment, thinking ahead, or thinking of the past. And as plotters might know specifically, you've constantly got in your head where you're going or where you want to go and where you have been and how you need to put all of these different layers into your plot. That takes you out of being present, and you're no longer responding to the current stimuli, to the current situation, but you're responding to what your plans are, which can actually end up making your whole plot read predictable, read forced, read inorganic, because this character wouldn't do that, but you need your character to get to this next plane. So of course they're going to act like that. Of course they're going to ask this question to get them to this place. And so it can just read a lot more forced because your characters are no longer acting on their own. They're acting within your specific requirements that you've already written out. And they are just kind of puppets that you're moving along instead of people responding to their situations. Now, this might sound a little crazy, a little unhinged, a little out of control, because in order to use a Meisner method for your writing, you actually have to loosen your stranglehold on what your characters are allowed to do and actually allow them, actually figure out who they are, what their personalities are like, and what decisions they would make in their circumstances with who they are, with their characterizations. And that might actually mess up your plans. If you very much require knowing where you're going and the kind of stuff that you're going to run into, this method may be very difficult for you because, yeah, when you give your characters the reins, they'll screw over your problems. It's why I kind of don't really plot super far ahead of what I'm doing. I just kind of get a general direction of where I'm going and then see how my character gets me there. But I'll probably get more into describing that as we go along. The most important thing about Meisner is that you need to get out of your head. The whole point of it is to be present, be in the moment with your characters, be responding to the scene. Specifically, if we take it out of the writing arena and go into the acting arena, is you as the actor need to be responding to your scene partner, need to be responding to your surroundings, and not in your head thinking of what is my next line coming up. You should be responding to that person. Meisner says, act before you think. Your instincts are more honest than your thoughts. True. Because we'll curate what we say and we'll curate what we do in accordance to what we think we're supposed to do. However, if you just let your instincts drive you, if you just let your automatic response drive you, it's going to be different than your planned responses. So when I'm using the Meisner method for my plotting, is I figure out who my character is, my narrative character, my main character, whoever is leading the scene. And I figure out what it is they want. What are they trying to accomplish? And where are they in the scene? It's so important to figure out who your characters are in order to make this work, because if you don't know who your character is, you don't know what their personality is like, you're not going to be able to do this, because every character makes decisions differently based on who they are, where they come from, their background, their status, all of that stuff. I'll probably use Bleed More, Body More as my example for this method, because one, super accurate to this method, and two, it comes out next month, so it seems like a win-win. So with Bleed More, Body More, the story starts out with Joey going to Leakin Park because she has the goal of picking up a last job at the end of the night. So story starting out, Joey's job is to find that car, hook it up to the tow, and get back to the body shop. Simple enough. Now, everything that happens between the start of the story and her finding that car is her responding to the surroundings around her. And I had no idea what all was going to pop out. All I knew was who she was as a person and dropped her into the park to go and find the car. The whole rest of the book itself, pretty much followed what her in the moment desires were. Now, there are two plots going on. There's the bigger plot of what actually happens in the book, and then there is every momentary scene plot. And this may be more of an actor's way of approaching it. You'll have to tell me if you're a writer, a strict writer, and what your writing classes or your writing guidances have said before. But as an actor, when you're handed a script, you're asked to do a character study, and in that character study, your job is to find out what your character is doing in a scene at any given moment. Where are they coming from? Where are they going to? And how are they accomplishing the goal that they came in for? Maybe that scene is a transitionary scene, so they're going from one place to another, and that's the only reason they're in that scene. It's very important to remember that nothing in life, nothing in a book, exists in a vacuum. Everybody has a reason for being where they are. Even if your reason is just, I'm bored and looking for something to do, that's exactly why you're there. If two people are in a meeting at work, one of those, what is it? Like an orientation meeting at work. Why are they both there? Well, they're there because they're required to be there for the job. Or maybe that one is required to be there for the job, and the other guy is jobless but snuck in because he wanted the free lunch that comes with it. So you always have a reason for these characters being in these places at these times. Those reasons will dictate how they act in those situations, on top of their personalities and their backgrounds and what they're trying to get out of the situation. When it comes to Bleed More, Body More, so it starts out with Joey's momentary goal in the first chapter is get the car. When she gets the car and she brings it back to the body shop, she finds a corpse in the back of the trunk, and the person who owns the car is missing. The person who owns the car is also a friend of hers. So her new momentary goal becomes find my friend. Now, in chapter 2, she returns to work because she's called into work by her boss because the cops are there because she found a body, and she's now told that she needs to talk to the cops. Her momentary goal is deal with the cops, get away from the cops without incriminating myself so that I can continue to look for my friend. So we end up having two goals that kind of, one blocks off the other. So now she's got a more immediate goal of get done with the cops so that she can continue to look for her friend. Then, after that, we get to chapter 3, where she goes to the scene where the car was left to look for her friend. She looks for him, doesn't find him. She's still looking for, she's that goal of finding her friend isn't gone, even when she fails to find him there. But she's now required to either take a break, wait it out, or look for other places for hints. She chooses to go and skate and try to calm down and maybe think of where he might go next. And then she runs into a new goal as she thinks she sees him where she's skating. So we go from one thing to another, and she's constantly responding to her surroundings, what she sees, what her surrounding people want from her, and everybody in the same scenes with her all have their own goals, whether it's the cop trying to get answers from this person, whether it's her boss just trying to deal with the day, whether it's anything. There is always stuff being responded to in any given scene, which is why it's so important to know who your characters are, where they're coming from, what they want at all given times. Now, an actor has it mildly easier because they only need to do this for one person. You, as a writer, if you want to be thorough, you need to do this for all of the characters. And you should be able to say what your character's goal is, why they're in that scene for any given moment. If your thing is just, well, I don't know, they're just there, then you might have more work to do, and the scene may be a little stagnant. I think that goes into why I have this clip in this slideshow, in that the first draft are for making the book exist. You're just learning who your characters are, what their circumstances are, what they're responding to. And once you get from beginning to end, you kind of have at least a map now of where your characters are, where they're going, what they want, and kind of what the beats are. And if you need to change scenes, you'll know that too. Because then when you get to second draft, it's all about making the story function. So anything that didn't work from beginning to end in the first draft, you're going to fix in the second draft. Maybe this will be full scenes. I know I changed a party scene in Cain and Abel between first revision and second revision because the whole that whole chapter didn't work. And I know with Bleed More, Body More 2, I'm going to be changing the whole second chapter in that book because I wrote it in the wrong location, and I didn't realize that it was written in the wrong location until after I wrote it. And I continued forward and I said, I think this needs to be in another location. So once you've made it exist, the next job is to make it all function, to make it make sense in the context in which it exists, so that every decision leads into the next decision, so that every bad action leads into having a consequence that makes sense. So every scene prior leads into the dynamic shift that comes into the next scene, because everything affects something else. Nothing lives in a vacuum, and dynamic characters will create dynamic circumstances in which they have to respond, and that is what creates tension. That is what creates twists, and that is what creates more situations in which the characters have to respond. Finally, once you're done with making your drafts functional, and maybe this takes 1 go around, maybe this takes 2 go rounds. This isn't saying that your book only needs 3 go rounds. The second draft is as long as it takes to make it functional. Once you get to the third draft, it's all about making it effective. So if your book is supposed to be spooky, if you want to raise the ambience, if you want to raise the character dynamics, if you want to raise the relationships, if you want to raise the tension, this all comes into the third draft, where you just start turning up the volume and using basically the story equalizer to pull up the things that you want to use. And it's really tough to not try to layer all of this stuff on when you're doing your first and second drafts, but I can assure you, by breaking it up into this, it makes the process so much easier that you don't stress out about getting it right the first time, and that you allow yourself a little more time to play, and a little more time to be wild, and just a little more time to not have to know exactly what you're doing. I freaking swear, I'm struggling so hard with BODYMORE 2, but I know that I'm going to go back and I'm going to add to the ambiance, and I'm going to work out scenes, and I'm going to work out characters so that Jag's not being dragged around quite as much as he is. It's all just part of the process. And if you allow yourself to break a story into these different sections and have different purposes for every time you go through, it is so much easier to get the story to where you want it to go. Now, with all of that said, let's actually go back to what this video is about, which is SANDFORD Meisner. Who is SANDFORD? He was an American actor and acting teacher who developed an approach to acting instruction that is now known as the Meisner technique. While Meisner was exposed to a method of acting at a group theater, his approach differed markedly in that he completely abandoned the use of effective memory, a distinct characteristic of method acting. Meisner maintained an emphasis on the reality of doing, which was the foundation of his approach. The Meisner technique components include emotional preparation, repetition, and improvisation. Enter into a scene in your character's emotional state by whatever means necessary. If your character is supposed to be upset, then make yourself upset, enter the scene upset. Use repetition to develop the skills and observation and instinct. This is to get out of your head. And I remember very distinctly doing Meisner classes, and the first couple of weeks were just spent like sitting in a chair looking at the other person, and you were just supposed to repeat what they were saying in order to not just try to come up with something to say. You were just supposed to be training how to be impulsive. And so I've got a short video of Meisner doing just that that I will be showing you guys here in a little bit. And then finally, improv. That says improve. I know, I'm a writer. But improv and allow flexibility in the scene. React to justified and organic stimuli. If somebody says something that makes you angry and your immediate response is, what the frick is wrong with you? That would be your response. So now I've got a video that I'm going to plop in here for you to see Meisner training in action. It might be a bit confusing, but hopefully you can see what is happening on the screen.
You have big teeth.
I have big teeth?
You have big teeth.
I have big teeth?
Yes, you have big teeth.
All right, I have big teeth.
All right, you have big teeth.
All right, I have big teeth.
All right, a little bothered.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
You missed something.
Yeah.
What?
You looked a little embarrassed by it.
That's right. That's right.
So I should pick up. I see.
I'm coming to that. Let me see.
You look tough, Bob.
I look tough, Bob.
You look tough, Bob.
I look tough.
You look tough.
I look tough.
You look tough.
You got a kick out of that.
Yeah, I got a kick out of
Yeah,
it.
you got a kick out of it.
Yeah, I got a kick out of
Oh,
it.
you got a kick out of it.
All right, I got a kick out of
All
it.
right, you got a kick out of it.
All right, I got a kick out of it.
All right, you got a kick out
Well,
of it.
don't get offended.
I'm not getting offended.
You're getting offended.
I am getting offended.
You are getting offended.
And
Going too far. Yeah, really? I could. Okay, let me see. Your game's yours.
Little mustache.
I have a little mustache.
Kind of shocked you, huh?
Kind of shocked me?
Not really.
Not really.
Not really.
Not really?
No, not really.
Oh, no, not really.
Oh, no, not really.
Oh, no, not really.
It's beginning to bug you now.
It's beginning to bug me.
Yeah, it's beginning to bug you.
Yeah, it's beginning to bug me.
Yeah, it's beginning to bug
Oh, you love that, don't you?
Yeah, I love that.
Ugh.
Didn't know what to say, huh?
No, I didn't know what to
No,
say.
you didn't know what to say.
No, I didn't know what to say.
Didn't know what to say.
No, I didn't know what to say.
No, you didn't know what to say.
No, I didn't know what to say. You're getting a lot of enjoyment out of this.
Yes, I'm getting a lot of enjoyment out of it.
Yes, you are.
Stick your tongue out at me.
I wasn't sticking my tongue out
You
at
stuck
you.
your tongue out at me.
I did not stick my
You
tongue.
stuck your tongue out at me.
I did not stick my tongue out at
You
you.
don't know what to say, do
No, I
you?
don't.
That was okay. Let me see. I'll wait for you where you are. Now, we gotta keep the repetition. We've gotta keep the contact. This time, the contact, the repetition comes from my behavior, not only from my words. We start with something political.
I think Carter's going to win again.
You think I'm going to
I think Carter's going to win.
You didn't do it. You think you didn't do it? What was I saying?
What are you, crazy? Oh my God, that's
Oh my God. You say you don't get it.
No.
I'll do it again. Without the words. Same thing.
Same thing. I think Carter's going to win again.
Not pretty much the same thing. What was I saying?
Well, that's pretty awful.
You know, the acne is behavior. Acne is behavior.
This has been one of my favorite quotes that I've been using probably since I gave this talk back in July. Acting is living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. Writing is exactly the same thing, except you're doing it with a bunch of different people. So when you're writing your story, unless it's specifically a power fantasy, you should be living truthfully under imaginary circumstances, which goes back to what is the emotional state? What are the restrictions on what this character is doing? What are the personality traits of the characters involved? What are the values of the characters involved? Where do these characters conflict? And conflict and tension and characters disagreeing is not a bad thing in a story. It's what's realistic. It's also what gives you the opportunity to help characters change and grow and become better, or work out those differences, or turn into war. If one character believes in something really strongly, let's say with Bleed More, Body More, Jag really wants to protect Joey, and Joey is very headstrong and wants to do her own thing. She is also very stubborn. So Jag has to weigh how to approach Joey to try to keep her out of trouble, but to also try to accomplish his goal of not just letting her say fuck off and go and hurt herself. He could also just give up and say fine, whatever, but we have to evaluate where his values are at, how much he values her friendship or their relationship in general, and what he's willing to do for her. As a Jag, I have to evaluate Joey's personality, Joey's emotional state, and how he's going to approach that emotional state. Sometimes he avoids actually grabbing her arm from her walking out of the room because she would get more aggressive. Other times he goes and actually pins her and says, look at yourself. And so it's weighing those situations. What is the truthful situation, the truthful response in the situation that is present? And being able to do this, analyzing how these characters act, what their values are, what they're willing to do, will make your story so much more organic and will make the responses so much more organic. It will also make them maybe get away from your planning, which is fine most of the time. Now, how to apply Meisner to your writing. So you've seen the videos. Living truthfully under imaginary circumstances is going to be the catchphrase for this method. What exactly does it look like? As true in the Meisner method, we're hitting repetition here. Who is your character? Who are all of the characters? Meet them on an individual human level. Analyze them as people with their own goals, their own backgrounds, their own personalities, their own lives, their own families, everything. Who is the character? Where is the character? Both in the small sense of where are they at the moment exactly that we're writing about in the story, and where are they at large, and how has that affected who they are? What does this character want? What are they doing in this scene? Is this a transitional scene from one to another? Are they looking for something? Are they trying to achieve something? All of that. What options do they have available to them to accomplish that goal? Like if somebody is stranded on the side of the road and they're trying to get from here to the closest town, what options do they have? They could walk. They could try to hitchhike. They could try to steal a car from somebody that drives by. What if nobody is driving by? So we have to constantly be assessing what options are around us. And if those characters don't have an option and they're kind of stranded, then you best come up with some kind of option. Usually throw something in there to break it. And then how do these choices interact with the environment? So a character making a bad decision will likely have consequences. How does making that bad decision, how does defying your mentor in this very important situation hurt you in the long run? And this, I think, is what a lot of authors actually avoid, especially with their beloved main characters that they don't want to suffer, is if they make a bad choice with their surrounding, they don't want a bad thing to come back and hit that character, which results in a lot of characters becoming Mary Sue's, becoming overly powerful because bad things don't actually happen to that character. Things that the character wanted still get to that character. And if you allow choices of the character to actually affect their environments, your characters are going to suffer, like for real. Oh, but it makes the story so much better, and it makes the story make so much more sense. Going back to the example of Bleed More, Body More, with all of these questions in mind, who is the main character? Joey. What does she want? To find her missing friend. What options does she have available to her? Basically, personal snooping because she doesn't trust the police at all. She's actually pretty antagonistic toward the police. What limitations does she have? Well, she's poor. She doesn't trust the cops. She doesn't really trust anybody. And she is probably overly independent and prideful, which is going to get in her way. How do her choices interact with her environment? She wanders around, finds nothing, gets frustrated, takes a break, thinks that she sees him, chases after him into unknown darkness, and slips into a ghost town. This is all within the first act. After she interacts with her environment in these ways, how does this change the plot? She now has a new goal. It is not finding Wayland. It is getting out of the ghost town that she's found herself in so that she can get back to looking for Wayland. So as you can see, she's constantly making decisions that interact with the things around her, putting her in a new position that she then has to figure her way out of. And this is what I mean by being dynamic, is your decisions turn into changes in the environment, which turn into actions coming from the character. And may change how the character was going to react, because the character cannot just keep going on the same way when they're no longer in the same position they were in before. To take this from the microscope to a more macro scope for plotting your story can look more like getting your character from a starting point to point A or climax A. Usually when I'm writing a book, I break it into 3 acts. They may not be traditional acts, but I always look at acts as a major shift in the main character's life or surroundings or something like that. Maybe they just turn into a different place. With my other upcoming novel that's coming out in May, the three changes are very distinct for Jan. So Act 1, he starts out in Ukraine. He's just in the middle of his little place in Ukraine. And the end of Act 1 is when he's on his way to America, because that is a major shift in his life. Now, Act 2 starts with him leaving Ukraine and getting into a plane to go to America, and Act 2 ends when he escapes the feds, because he's basically been being held captive by the feds, been kidnapped by the feds, and he gets away from them. This also becomes a major shift because he's now put in a new environment with a new people. So Act 3 is him getting away from the feds, and the end of Act 3 is the end of the book, which results only because he got away from the feds. So all of these things, one leads into the next, and you should be constantly evaluating what your character is doing and how they're getting from one place to the next. with Bleed More, Body More, and I know I'm jumping all over the place with projects here. When I started with Joey, I'm just going to look at Act 1. All that I knew is that she was at the park trying to pick up her friend's car, and I knew that the first major shift in the book, the end of Act 1, would be when she finds the ghost town underneath Baltimore. I didn't know what was going to be between those 2 points, so I just dropped Joey in with her goal of finding her friend, knowing that the next endpoint I needed to get to was how she would get to the underground ghost city. And that's how she led me through all of these different places where she ended up in the ghost town by the end of chapter 4. So to apply Meisner to your overall book plot, think of going from climax A to climax B. From going from climax B to climax C. What are these major shifts happening in your character's life? And then kind of let your character make those decisions. Every scene that is in your book should have a purpose to get your character closer to their goal. Now, they may not be doing something that does get them to that goal, specifically, like actively getting in a car to go somewhere, but it should be contributing to what eventually becomes the choice that gets there. With, say, Boom, 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 there's a chapter in there, in the second act, where he is just taken to the Pentagon and introduced to his new laboratory / film studio, and he is not actively escaping the feds. He is just living his life there, thinking that he's a YouTube star, and he is learning about his environment, and that is one of the things that helps him kind of understand that he is not in the situation that he thinks he's in. Even still, your character should have a reason for being in that scene, and it should show through in how the story moves forward. I'm going to end with a Meisner quote that with a developed imagination, there's no place that you can't go. That is my quick version of my presentation on Meisner, using the Meisner technique for your creative writing. If you have questions about this, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to try to help you out if I can. And is this legitimate? I don't know. I just have a weird background, an eclectic background. Studied in theater first for my undergraduate degree, and I still see a lot of holdover of a lot of what I've learned in theater and how it plays into the way that I write and the way that I stylize and the way that I plot and just all of that. And so I'm just sharing with you guys some of the methods that I use, or the way that I organize or understands plot and character, and hopefully maybe it'll help you out. But I like to share, hoping that it helps somebody out someday, somewhere. So let me know if this helps you out, or if you thought this was interesting at all down in the comments. I look forward to seeing your thoughts. And with all of that said, thank you so much for watching. Tomorrow night is the actual final night of the Battle of the Bulge. It was a thick bulge with so many submissions and so many great authors. Indie authors, fresh authors, bringing their first chapters to the Loin Stream. I'm so blessed that you guys submitted, so I appreciate you all so much. And join us tomorrow for the last 4 submissions and the start of our next Loin Stream read. Thank you again so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross. Is he in trouble? We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer.
For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die.
Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?